Welcome to the space. Welcome to the space. We're going to start in just a few moments. We're just allowing folks to gently enter the space. If you need any access support, Deanna is here. You can drop a note in the chat and we'll do whatever we can to get you more support. We do have this session of Producing in Pandemic captioned. So you can hit the live transcription button at the bottom of the screen and activate captions if that supports your access needs. We're sharing the screen with our digital communication agreements. And in just a few moments, I'm going to turn this music down. It's very chill music. This is what happens when you literally Google the words chill hip hop on YouTube. And then this is what comes out of the computer. And I find it's different and pleasant every time. Let's actually acknowledge where we're getting this music from, and then I will stop sharing my screen. All right. Because I also realized there's several different radio channels I apparently play. They're different companies. I didn't know. So we are listening to Lo-Fi Hip Hop Beats Radio. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm going to stop on that. Going to admit folks into the space. I'm going to hit stop on sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do it. So many times to figure that out. Okay. Admitting more folks into the space, and we are going to stop sharing the screen. Excellent. Yay. Welcome, welcome everyone to Producing and Pandemic, session 45. And we have been meeting since last March, sharing all of the different discoveries and challenges about producing through pandemic. We are an international cohort, so we have participants coming from Canada. We have participants coming from different places in the Americas. And we're just really, really grateful to have you all here. We run a relaxed space, so be comfortable and participate at your level of comfort. You can be camera on, camera off. There's no need to apologize. We do invite you to be camera on when you're sharing your story. That helps with access for folks who read lips. And also it just helps us to connect more to your story if we can see you when you're talking about your practice. We begin with a check-in where we're going to invite every participant to say hi, hello. Let us know what your practice is, where you're coming from in the world. We do a decolonized greeting, so there's a land acknowledgement embedded in that. Deanna, would you be kind enough, or Rebecca, could you repost the links? We like to share power equally. So our notes link is right there in the chat, and we want to welcome you all to go into it and drop your links. When you're telling us the story of your practice, or if you're telling us the story of a project that you're excited about, or if you're even telling us the story of some other person's artwork that you witnessed and want to amplify or learn from, just drop those links in the chat. We have a practice of lifting those links, sharing them in the Facebook transmedia space, as well as in the Discord space. So just thank you for all of that. I am also going to request, since we have a medium-sized introductory script, I would love to request one of my colleagues drop that script into the chat, and I will model to begin. Hi, my name is Claudia Alick. My gender pronouns are they, their, she, hers. You can use those interchangeably. I am speaking to you from the land of the Ohlone people. The people are still alive, and I'm still talking to you from a land that has concentration camps. Gosh darn it. I look forward to not having to say that. I am visual description. I'm a Black woman wearing a pink top with like triangles on it and pink arthritis gloves. And I've got a brown afro, and I'm sitting in front of a projected image of a black box theater in Memphis, Tennessee, with a Black Lives Matter sign floating in the background. I have a muscle disorder, so that means sometimes I might pull a face. I'm rarely pulling a face at something somebody said. Generally, I'm pulling a face because one of my muscles is pulling me. I've got my water. I'm only now in this moment realizing I left my coffee in the kitchen. So to serve my access needs at some point, I'm turning this screen off and I'm going to go run and get that coffee. Luckily, this place is small, so I'll actually still be in the space with you digitally. Let's see, my practice. I'm a transmedia social justice producer, and it's had me just being in a lot of different spaces. So being in some spaces where we're looking at how do you do transformative justice work that's usually done in physically shared space? How do you translate that to a digital space successfully? I'm also just looking at distribution and realizing that we are in an attention economy. So that means relationship, human relationship, and the ability to invite and have people show up is actually one of the biggest pieces of strength. So I'm looking at, oh, where are the ways in my practice we're exercising that? And what are the digital tools that exist that can help us do that better? And I'm going to save my challenge and discovery in producing because I have invited a bunch of colleagues from Trek Table to join us. I've told you a couple of stories about Trek Table, so we've got some friends who helped to create Trek Table, and they're going to just share some more about that. And honestly, that has been a space of deep discovery for me this week. All right, we do not we don't do hierarchical power, so I'm not going to call on people. I'm going to invite you to exercise your agency and stack in the chat. Just put your name in the chat, and that will be the order that people introduce themselves in. So we won't be calling on folks. Just put your name in the chat. And also that helps us to not have pauses, long pauses in between folks. And it also helps us to avoid that very awkward performance of halfway through the introductions when you've forgotten who's already gone and you're like, I'm going to call on, I don't know who to call on. So I'm going to mute myself and invite us to begin introducing.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Pingree, she, her, hers. I am speaking to you from the ancestral lands of the Yuchi, the Shawnee, and the Cherokee, colonially known as Nashville, Tennessee. I am a middle-aged white woman with my kind of auburn hair in a side braid, wearing a maroon plaid shirt. I'm in front of a window that's rather bright, and so my lighting is a challenge. And there are two twin beds behind me in the room I'm renting. We joke that it's the ghost attic room. I am, my access needs are met. I am the co-founder of Analog Theater, which is actually a Chochenyo speaking Ohlone based company in Berkeley, California. And we do physical theater devising and have had to pivot hard in the pandemic because our focus is generally mask and physical theater, puppets and those kind of things. Yeah, the challenge that I'm facing is very silly this week, but it is that I have moved my quarantine to a time zone that is off by 2 hours, and it is just the very analog thing of like consistently translating those 2 hours and then communicating with people about it, where I'm like, why is this hard? We have the technology. But that's really been, I've been here for 1 week and it is hilariously difficult. So I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you today. And I pass it to the next person. Mickey, you're muted.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mickey Goldhaber, coming to you from Ohlone Land in Berkeley, California. And I am the artistic director of Rye Cripps Disabled Women's Theater. And I'm really glad to be back. It's been a long time and I miss everybody. So nice to see you all. Sorry, I'm sounding croaky. Um, I've been managing a lot of health stuff lately, so not a whole lot of, and working, but I guess just I watched the reading of Michael Dean Sullivan's The Great Con. It's a Playwrights Foundation rough reading on Saturday, and they're actually doing it again tonight at 7:30. And I highly recommend it. And again, I just would say, just simply reading a great play on Zoom with great actors is still really effective. And it's good for me to remember that. And I enjoyed it. And I urge you to see it. Check.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paulo Rocha Tavares. My pronouns are he and they. Here in South Florida in Seminole Tribe Land, but originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico, Ogwe Pongwe land, and here from Dancing Earth as representative of Dancing Earth for Roland Tongan. I'm their marketing director and business analyst. And we're working a lot these years. Also, I'm a middle-aged man, Latin man of Brazilian descent, with luscious dark hair in the front and a disappearing act in the back, I'll say. And there's some beautiful palm trees, beautiful 80-degree tropical weather today here, enjoying it outside. But on what I'm working with Dancing Earth, we're doing a lot of restructuring and a lot of re-strategizing ever since the pandemic. Last year, we did over 100 online events, and it was quite an extraordinary way to challenge ourselves and really try to figure it out. But also, it's one of those that opened up a lot of questions and a lot of realizations of where we were. So we really are taking the time at the beginning of the year to really figure out what that is and really asking those hard questions and really putting processes in place and double checking them in a way that we've never allowed ourselves to. So it's been really a nice beginning of the year of figuring it out of like what's next. So yeah, thank you everybody. I'm excited to be here.
Hi, my name's Sabrina Hamilton. I use the pronoun she, her, hers. I am the artistic director of the Co-Festival of Performance. I am coming to you from the traditional lands of the Nipmuc and Pecumtuck people, which is now colonially known as Western Massachusetts. I am a 65-year-old woman with straight white hair, dark green glasses, a patterned sweater, and I'm sitting in a peacock colored room in front of one closed and one open closet door. My access needs, I may be making some faces today too. I'm trying desperately to clear some eustachian tubes in my ears. So it's not you, it's just my ears. Challenge this week is remembering that all the admin stuff is serving the art. And sometimes it's hard to keep the art palpable in the middle of bookkeeping and other fun things. Check.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Marie Ren Velez. I use she, her pronouns, and coming from Tongva land. My practice is theater producing and event producing. It has been all online lately. And so affiliations, I'm a co-founder and co-producing artistic leader of Artists at Play. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Trek Table, and I'm also affiliated with USC in arts presenting there. Let's see. Oh, I don't look middle-aged, but I am Asian American woman, Filipino, with tan skin, round face, brown glasses, ear length, black hair with a shaved side. And I am standing in my Zoom box with a white wall and some artwork with my partner, Arthur. And My challenge this week has been focus and multitasking, just kind of with all the things. So that's my check-in, and I'm passing it to Arthur.
Hi, my name's Arthur Wong. I go by gender pronouns he, him. We live in Los Angeles, which is traditionally Tongva land. As a practice, I'm generally a designer. I've worked in the skateboard industry for like about the last 20 years. And for this practice, I'm affiliated with a Trek Table, which I serve as a producer, designer, and co-host. And then let me see, access needs. I am dealing with skateboarding at middle age, so I will be sitting lower for most of this. Visual description of myself. I am a middle-aged Asian man with a hat on and a vest. I wear glasses and I have a goatee, and we're sitting in front of a white wall background. And one challenge discovery this week, finding that life balance. I'm an interesting challenge I'm having right now is in my middle age, trying to reorient where my career is going. I cannot be skateboarding and trying to find new ways to be creative and fulfill my soul at the same time, and not just work for corporations for them to make money, but really trying to find the time and space to take all the learnings that I have and really try to fulfill needs of others as well. And then at the same time, still finding time to skate and have my body work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Heather Andersma, she, her pronouns. I am coming to you from the land of the Ohlone people. I recently read that the land of the Ohlone peoples, the Ohlone people are actually perhaps 8 different distinct groups, and who lived and live on territory stretching from the Bay Area down to, I believe, San Luis Obispo. If anybody else knows exactly, please correct me. But I just thought that was interesting, that it's really a large geographical area and really a coalition of people, which is why people had different languages. And where I am is colonially known as Berkeley, California, the Chochenyo speaking group of the Ohlone people. I'm a freelance theater director, and I'm in my process to become a intimacy director and intimacy coordinator. I am a middle-aged white woman with gray going into pre-pandemic dyed reddish blonde hair, which was closer to my original hair color as a child. And I have glasses on, a marled heathery, Heather, name is Heather, and it's heathery yarn, brown and white, and a beige background. My discovery, this sort of discovery challenge combo, I went to a workshop put on by intimacy professionals about burnout. And I was hesitant to go because I felt like in intimacy, I'm not burned out at all. I am super eager and excited. And I don't really consider myself a person who gets burned out in work because I feel, or theater, because I feel like theater is so incredibly satisfying and fulfilling. I love it so much. I'm happy to work and let everything else fall away. But in a way that is kind of a weird burnout behavior to not have that balance. And I certainly recognized the characteristics of burnout in other areas of my life. So in the end, that workshop was eye-opening, and now I feel like, oh gosh, I need to read more about this and really do some self-reflection. Anyway, I think that's it. Did I? Yeah, check.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Chinchilla, pronounced like tortilla. I am also part of Trek Table and a co-host I let's see, I identify as also as a writer and a poet. I teach part-time at UC Davis in Chicano studies. Yeah, so, which is wonderful and also not always a full-time gig. So a lot of my other gigs were canceled, which were since I wrote a book of poetry called The Cha-Cha Files. From a queer Central American perspective, I often get brought in to do performances and readings and talks. And so a lot of those got canceled this past year. But I have been able to do a lot of online readings and events. And I've sort of, I mean, halfway enjoyed teaching online just because of I suffer or enjoy arthritis and did not like commuting all the way from Oakland, Ohlone, or it's, I think Oakland is also referred to Huichin or Huichin land. Sorry, I'm doing it all backwards, but did I say she, her pronouns? And my description is Guatemalan, mestiza, light skin, brown, long hair, with I think these are like fuchsia colored glasses. And that's Comandante Kitty in the background, a cat with a like a subcomandante mask on. And then if you hear any kind of little grunt noises, Chorizo is my dog who won't leave me alone since I work at home. And yeah, as I guess, yeah, just sort of figuring out how to connect and create art online. So some of it I enjoy because I have some media and video production background, and I've always wanted to do a podcast. So it's been super exciting to work on Check Table. But also, you know, everything else like the isolation and technology glitches, and also just figuring out how to make the extra money that I've lost. So yeah, that's the realness. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Maya. My name is Patricia Miller. I'm in the Ramaytush Ohlone part of the world called San Francisco. I use she and they. My access needs are I'm going to have to turn my camera off for most of this meeting. A visual description, I've middle-aged, long, used to be fake blonde hair, now sort of gray blonde. Intentionally wearing lipstick this morning, especially for you guys. Some old glasses on a 3-year-old prescription, and sitting on a green sofa with a red wall and paintings behind my head and a lot of animals at my feet. Okay, challenges and discoveries. The challenge has been I have been away from this group. I was in this group from the very beginning and every single week until August the 18th, when my full-time teaching job resumed and my schedule was horrible. So my challenge has been missing this group and feeling some degree of shame in returning. Even though I've been teaching theater online, I'm like, what have I got to give? I haven't actually made a show. Besides producing, you know, hours and hours and hours, 16 hours of Zoom a week, Zoom theater classes and hundreds of monologues. But the challenge is really finding the balance between those of us that have got too much work and those of us have no work or little work. And yeah, I'm sorry, it's just a weird place to be in. But I'm really excited to be back. I'm only gonna be able to come on the 10 a.m. calls. I can't come on the 1 o'clock calls, but I'm glad that you're mixing it up. Check. Good to see you.
Patricia, welcome back. Hi, folks. Tanya Newmeyer. I use they, them pronouns. I'll put them in my name in a moment. I'm zooming in from the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Petun, Mississauga of the New Credit, land colonially known as Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I look forward to the day that the land is given back to the original land keepers. Currently reading Robin Wall Kimmerer's book. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Braiding Sweetgrass. And so she's a botanist weaving together scientific and indigenous knowledge and metaphor. And she's out of the Potawatomi, it's a new word for me to say out loud, First Nation, I think in colonially Oklahoma, but it's related to the Anishinaabe people who are widespread on this side of the colonial border as well. Yeah, I've been trained by Smokey Sumac to try to add something to my land acknowledgements in terms of my ongoing practice of decolonizing my work. So I was gratefully reminded of that by Heather today. And I'm a poet who did a show for the first time in a long time, a little tiny thing on Zoom. I was producing a lot early on in the pandemic, and I mostly do workshops. I've done workshops from 10-year-olds to university students through the pandemic times. But it was good to try to collect the scraps of paper and bring together some work. So I was thinking about the purpose of art in this time. My visual description, I'm a white non-binary person, currently with no hat. This is a rare view in the pandemic. And a green scarf with a white wall and a window and some plants behind me. For my access needs, I will need to turn the camera off again soon, but this is where I'll be speaking to you from, or approximately in my kitchen on my lunch break. Great to be with you all here this week. Yeah, check.
Are we all met? Beautiful. I always like to practice a little bit of slowing down when we're doing these exercises, because it's strange meeting remotely. We're meeting through cameras. It makes us feel like we're on television or we have to be camera ready. When in fact, what we're doing is we're replicating what it would be like for y'all to come to my living room and hang out. So welcome to my living room. Be comfortable. We're also trying to practice how do we actually do peer exchange in a time period that's in such great, just challenging movement. So Patricia was talking about how we've got populations in our field where they have no work. They have nothing to do, and they're like, I need something. And then we have other populations that are overworked and are working really intense hours, and they're working intense hours doing 3 jobs from the same space. So we just got some intense imbalance happening in our field. That's what I'm hearing. I'm going to give us a moment. I'm going to go back to the notes and reference some of the stuff we discovered this week. And then I'm going to, and we can chit chat about that a little bit. And then I'm just going to hand the microphone fully over to my Trek Table friends to hear the story of how Trek Table manifested, any challenges that came about why it was manifesting, because we recognize we're inventing things in real time. We're literally inventing new aesthetics, new ways of producing. And for many of us, we're attempting to do it in decolonized, more justice-based formats, which makes it even more challenging. So just shout out to everyone. Oh, thank you for dropping the link, Tanya, Art to Actions event. Thank you so much for dropping that. And thank you to all of the human beings who are grabbing links from the chat, placing them in the notes. I've also clocked that some of us have already started taking some of those notes and putting them in the Discord. Just yay, all of our ways of remaining connected asynchronously, because we all know it's hard to be in the same place at the same time. It's a miracle, which is why we're recording this so that others can experience it with us later. So going back to the notes, let's see, what do we have up in here? Let's see, the ticket trap. In the notes, I have dropped a link to my boy Al Letson has this show called Reveal online, and this episode is a great episode to listen to. It has an entire section on secondary sellers, which I think are now going to become an even larger challenge for us as event producers. So the secondary ticket selling market it's pretty much ticket scalpers, but they've gotten really advanced, and they're sometimes cloning websites, making websites that really look like the venue, and then selling tickets on a speculative market. It was interesting stuff, and I welcome you to listen to it. It also has a second section that's on K-pop bands, which was super fun. But then the third section was specifically about venues and how they're delaying some of their events, and just some of the challenges for these very large venues that make their money selling tickets, and they can't do that right now. They literally have to be shut down. So just all sorts of interesting conversations there. I highly recommend listening to that podcast. Let's see, Super Bowl was this weekend. The Super Bowl, I'll be honest, y'all, you know me. Claudia, Alick's personal opinion is, why y'all meeting in person? That's stupid. That's a super spreader event. That's not a Super Bowl. That's a super spreader event. But let's hear what the Super Bowl did as event producers to try and make that as safe as possible. So the Super Bowl, they had it in the Raymond James Stadium, which normally seats 75,000, and they capped it at 25,000. So some of the tickets that folks were paying, like they were paying like $9,000 to $10,000 to physically be in that space. There is something valuable and magic about us being in the shared space, creating the thing together. It is valuable. There's something to it. Let's see. They had 30,000 cutouts because they wanted to not feel like, I guess it was just to make it look like it was less empty, which is, I think, something some other venues have tried out. They gave everyone personal protective equipment. So everyone had their own little kits. Now, the personal protective equipment, it sounds fancier than it is. It was basically like a mask and some hand sanitizer, but they all got their own special packaged personal protective equipment kits. They were told to stay 6 feet away from each other and were seated 6 feet away from each other. Again, I just have to ask, really? Did folks have sticks or like hula hoops to really make sure that that 6 feet distance was taking place? We've had conversations about 6 feet distance fashion before. They presented all tickets on mobile devices, and they basically made it a full cashless transaction system. So they had reverse ATMs. So for people who brought cash, they could feed their cash into a machine and then have it like put back on a special card that they could then use. And they were meant to use cards. And those were some of the things that the Super Bowl did to help make that very large event where they pulled a lot of human beings into shared space together a little safer. They had some other things that they did for the actual sports teams that I had not, I figured we didn't have time to go through all of that. But for us as event producers, it's interesting to look at sports events as well as political events and look at what are they doing, what are the choices they're making, and where are we as a field learning from each other or deciding not to learn from each other because we want to make money. I have opinions about capitalism. I'm going to give us a quick pause, welcoming Ann James to the space. Welcome, welcome. We just got done doing our introductions, and I was just doing I'm just naming a few of the topics that came up this week that we've got some information about in the chat. But welcome, Ann. Would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself to the space? We have just a little bit of a script for introductions where we invite you to share your name, gender pronouns, a land acknowledgement, visual description of yourself, and then just share what your practice is. And if there's been any exciting learnings or challenges this week.
Yeah, sure. Sure, thank you so much. I just popped in because you came up on my radar. My name is Ann James, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am living on occupied land of the Tongva people, also known as Los Angeles. And I realized that using this method of communication is not available to some of the people who live here. And for that, I am feeling very honored And yes, I am an intimacy coordinator, intimacy director, living here in LA, working for network television, doing that work. And for those of you who don't know what an intimacy coordinator is, we make sure that places of racial content, cultural content, sexual content are safe for the actors on set and in rehearsal spaces. I am lying in my bed. I am an African American woman, and I am here in my room. I have blonde hair that is bleached, and I wear glasses, and that's about it. But thank you for giving me a moment to introduce myself. And I guess something new and great that's happening is that um, there have been big changes in my field recently. It's a relatively new field, and so I'm very happy to have a company called Intimacy Coordinators of Color. And so I am trying to bring more people of color into the leadership of intimacy globally. And to my knowledge, I am the only Black owned intimacy organization in the world. So hopefully many more to come.
I love that through two different pathways, intimacy direction came into this conversation. And I'm just going to lean in close to the camera and just kind of speak to our asynchronous audience about how important this skill set is. And I think I'm curious about what it's like developing these skill sets remotely. In my introduction, I shared how I've been doing some transformative justice development work. And it's complicated trying to figure out how to do it in a digital context. One of our friends who introduced themselves was speaking about their teaching practice. This was you, Patricia, I believe. Speaking about a teaching practice and feeling like I'm not doing anything. But in fact, that's huge. There's a reason why we keep meeting every week. We're reinventing the wheel in some ways. I don't want to put you on the spot, Anne, but maybe at some point in the future, we can invite you to come back and do a fuller presentation to talk about intimacy direction and how you're negotiating teaching those skill sets in an age of pandemic. All right.
No, go ahead. I thought you were asking me a question. My phone rang and I couldn't hear you, but yes, keep going, please.
I gave you a soft invite for some future event.
Oh, yes. Well, you might be a future event, actually. Yeah, we're going to be meeting about that. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring in the remote training for this seemingly very close and intimate, if for lack of a better word, relationship with the actors, with the director, with the DP, which is a director of photography, if we're on set, or with the stage manager, if we're in a rehearsal room. I actually just did a remote intimacy choreography session on an independent feature film. So all the two actors and the director were in one space, and I was calling in on Zoom from another space. And with the understanding of the script and the understanding of the location, I helped them through boundary exercises, and then we went into choreography with me being remote, and it was wonderful. Like I really, really was impressed with their dedication. Neither one of them the actors had worked with an intimacy coordinator before, and the director was very understanding and listening and adaptable to what his actors were saying and what they were expressing about their boundaries. And the choreography was beautiful. I called ahead and made sure that they had the proper modesty garments and that they had the proper barriers there so that they felt comfortable. And this might be a wave of the future, Claudia. I mean,
I think so, Anne. I really do. Like I said, I think I'm going to follow up with an email to do a more formal invite to invite you to the space, for us to spend some time talking about it. Welcome to the space, Terry Hashimi. And I see that Patricia has her hand up and would like to add some stuff. Please go right ahead, Patricia.
I just want to praise Anne and Heather for the work you're doing, because as a former casting director and now a person in charge of young people, the amount of particularly young people that are asked, or they find something on casting website and it says nudity required, they come back to me and they're like, should I go up for this? And I'm like, I can't really advise that, because the question I always say to them is ask if there's an intimacy director and obviously research the company. But young people today in the sort of age of internet casting are really being asked to do all kinds of things that, in my generation of being an actor, and I'm about 112, it would have been a second or third phase that you'd actually get that question. And now it's sort of right out there. So, I mean, how you guys work is incredible. So thank you for your work.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Patricia. And I'm just going to lift up that when Anne was talking about her practice, the word boundaries came up several times. I'm going to lift up in the chat. Sabrina asked if I had, when we'd been reviewing some of the Super Bowl protocols, she asked if the medical professionals in the Super Bowl stands had to be vaccinated. I believe that there was some vaccination protocol with some people who had to be vaccinated. There's more details in that article that I posted, but I don't know all the details. I really don't. I'll tell you what, I've actually been trying to find somebody who works in those arenas to come visit us. But the truth is, it's very, very, there's all kinds of litigious stuff going on in there, and folks are afraid to come speak in public about some of it. So I am going to move us forward because I am excited to hear from our guests. But the last thing to shout out was I believe, Heather, you shared this with the group. So I just want to shout it out and lift it up. Open Isadora sessions every other Sunday. I've 100% not put down his name, but I did put down his Facebook post. And I think if I click on it, I might be able to get to his name, Jared Mezzochi. Jared Mezzochi. I can't vouch for the class because I have not attended it, but I love the spirit of free open sessions to get more capacity on these different platforms. So Isadora is another platform for queuing and producing your work. So if you're interested more in that, there are links in our group shared notes. Before I move us to Trek Table, are there any lingering observations from all the stuff we just chatted about? Any lingering ties or things you want to lift up from folks' introductions? Just want to make sure I'm not moving us forward too quickly. Yay, awesome. Let's talk Trek Table. And I just acknowledged Terry joined us. We've been doing a loose introduction. So Terry, whenever y'all are chatting, please feel free to let us know who you are as a human being. It's so wonderful to have you here in the space. But I'm going to officially hand the microphone to you, Marie, so that you and Arthur and Maya can get us started. We'd love to hear about what is the Trek Table and how did it start?
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. So I guess, okay, well, the Trek Table is a web show / talk show / podcast that has actually been a topic of conversation when dreaming for the last year and a half between Arthur and our friend Allison De La Cruz, aka Dela, and myself. We just kind of talking about Star Trek Discovery and finally having a Star Trek series with a Black female lead and just and what that means for science fiction and those who live in the Trek space and are fans of Star Trek. And so there has been a lot of discussion and criticism, and we definitely felt like it wasn't really addressing the things that we wanted to talk about when it came to Star Trek and Star Trek Discovery. So so after a year or so of just kind of fantasizing about having a podcast or some kind of content that we could put out, in the middle of the pandemic, there then became an opportunity to make it a reality. And so, I actually, that was when I was like, I don't know if I can do this because I have a full-time job and a theater company. So I can't really like produce this. I can be a part of this. And I kind of stepped away from the planning, and Dela and Arthur really like spent a lot of time brainstorming, working things out, bringing people in like Maya and Terry and Claudia, our production coordinator, Brandon, marketing people, other folks, and to help produce, because it takes a team to put something together. So that I'll start there. What else? Anything we want to add? Arthur, Maya, Terry, Claudia?
I guess I started as a sort of a soundboard for my partner, which is Dela. And I had worked in college radio and had studied broadcasting. So the idea of it was very kind of exciting to me. And then slowly was brought in to be a host. I think I thought I wasn't like nerdy enough for it. So, but I think that was also part of the draw, that to feel comfortable and safe, safe or whatever, to have critical and fun and about something as something like Star Trek. So I think those are the kinds of conversations we would have together for fun, or I have with friends about TV and representations. And that's also something I teach Latinos in the media a lot. So those are conversations I have a lot, but I'm also like very much interested in not only the critique, but the practice of trying to make something. It's I personally think that it's easier to critique than it is to make. So so I think this is part of that practice of of making and seeing how we could actually do that, and also make it somewhat fun. And I had talked to Dela a lot about missing being a part of a theater practice, or missing collaborating with a performance group that I used to be a part of. So so she jokes after the fact, she's like, see, now we have a theater ensemble, basically, when that's not how it was presented, because there is a performative aspect of it, there's a writing aspect of it, producing aspect of it. So it's been really exciting to for everyone involved to bring in their talents and their experiences in the so-called outside world of producing and stage managing and sound engineering, things like that. So I think that, and also centering, like I want to learn more about some of the technological aspects too. So there's there's a sharing of learning, but then there's also bringing in skilled people, like Arthur's design skills, and Terry has a background in theater and producing, like I think also with music, and so so yeah, you know, wrangling us as artists, I think is just as much of an important work as it is being able to sort of create and imagine together.
So I have the Outpost 13 Twitch channel pulled up. If we wanted to share a clip of what this show looks like so that folks can have kind of an idea in their head. I know that I'm curious about a couple of things. If we have time, I would love it. Arthur, if you could talk a little bit about your design work, which has just been really beautiful. And I think we would all love to hear how you manifested those designs, like kind of like why, like were you designing for Instagram? Like I would just love to hear more about why design and how design. Also how design is useful. We love to say these are the programs we use. I'm also curious about how big is the team? You touched upon this a little bit, Marie, but I actually think it's very useful to actually explicitly talk about how many human beings are necessary to pull off what seems like a bunch of folks just talking about Star Trek real relaxed like. I feel like we could also literally talk about what is like you have a really you have a developmental schedule that you created over time, and there's we're not improvising. So we could hear about any of those things. All of those things would be interesting. Before we jump into that, do you want me to share the clip, or do we want to hear from you before I share the clip? Clip, 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 clip.
Clip, please.
Clipping it up. All right. And y'all, I did not prepare for this, so I have no idea what I'm about to share or play. I just pulled it up at random. So let's see what happens. Ha. Woo. Oh, see, no sound. Okay, let's see if we can fix that.
We're holding track space for people who feel disconnected and are checking in. We're holding track space for people who are on a new journey, or the aunties who ask us to do the impossible. And we're also holding track space for our friends and allies in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here.
That's the end of a section. Let's see if we can
let's go ahead and breathe all that in as we get ready to jump into this episode. Here's what we're holding track space for.
Okay, so we're holding track space.
Table questions number 1. Am I right?
Oh,
yes, I'll take this. Yes, I've actually noted if you follow the show into other seasons.
Please forgive me. I'm actually rewinding to actually get to this section.
Giorgio,
we're so messy.
And then tries to do a mutiny, but fails.
And I feel like. And
should
then,
I do the last one?
Yes, you should do the last one.
Rhythm heads back to the bridge. Release Saru, tries to get all the weapons and get everybody armed. And just as this is happening, Giorgio emerges and is like, no way.
That's popcorn recap where we're guessing.
That was a good. Any other chunklets of plot that we missed?
All right, this was fun. I'm gonna stop.
I feel like we have
sharing my screen now.
Good job, everybody. We got through more plot than we've ever gotten through in this section. So I think I'm a little stunned. I'm like, wow, we did it. Good job, everybody.
Oh my gosh. All right, that was a messy clip. I should have really tried to find a good clip, because there's theme songs. There's entire sections. I might try and find, Maya, your space runway section a little cleaner, but let me hush and let folks talk for a moment while I look for a better clip.
Okay, great. I think Arthur should actually talk about the design part and like what programs he's using and where the ideas came from. So
I have a bunch of notes for like different things too, so I will reference the notes. I also just want to acknowledge too, for me, this is an allyship practice. For me, this is finding a way for me to help hold space and also join my partner in theater practice. I feel like I'm an official theater boyfriend now. I've done some consulting on theater pieces. I've painted multiple sets. I've done all these things to help support her work in Asian American theater and at USC in like little ways. And I'm just so happy to share this space with her now for holding space for other people in their fandom and Trek. So I would like to say, like, for me, that's my modality. That's my overarching thing. And for me, it's just about trying to find place for everybody in a fandom. Me coming from skateboarding, I have such a weird past, and I'm a minority of a minority of a minority. And so me trying to find a transition in my career and finding ways to be creative, this has been like such a fulfilling and interesting, very complex process, because skateboarding and making money doing this weird kids toy at my age is a very funny transition to trying to help transition and to like create content and have fun. So so yeah, definitely you guys can see at the heart of the show is Dayla. Since the beginning we talked to Dayla, like she's got to be the captain. Like she has the vision, she has the purpose, and I think a lot of what we've been trying to do is flesh those things out and find ways to bring all these ideas that she has to fruition. To like we have definitions for like holding Trek space, or what it means to be at the Trek table, and having like the openings where we have all the invitations, the grounding, and trying to and I would say too, like in this sense, Trek table for me is also a way to help her build her brand. Like she is also in a point of transition where she's been a creative director, the theater director. She led the JACCC, the Japanese American Community Cultural Center in Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. And so as a friend of hers for so long, she's one of Marie's like best friends. I just want to see her thrive in this new role and all these adventures that she's having. So that's kind of like how we came into it. So for all the roles like co-host, I basically try to fulfill like an allyship model platform. Like it's a practice where I'm trying to learn right now. Like I'm in a feminist reading group. Like I do my own practices and trying to find ways to learn, and then see if there's ways that I can also model or find other models and just try to find ways that I can help serve the project and be both like a visual and like person like in place to help show that because the fandom itself at the heart of what our podcast is trying to bridge that gap, because there's a strong tendency for toxic masculinity to be a strong proponent of fandom, and there's a strong sense of ownership and gatekeeping that we're trying to find a way to bridge. I wouldn't say we're trying to like topple it. I think if anything, like for me personally, I have so much respect for all these people in the fandom that I don't normally find a place, but I totally understand that like we all have our own way to come into fandom. So I think we're really trying to find that bridge and also create a platform for new folks to find Trek. Because for me and Allison, and I think for all of us, even my partner, like growing up watching Trek is like one of the few places we saw people of color. And so I think that's such an amazing gift, and the way that Trek is finding new ways to do that, we're trying to find new ways to bring other people into that fandom and be like open.
I love all of this. I think that we as a group are super hungry to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of like, how is it produced? Because like I love that, like I feel like we've got a really good firm footing in like what's the spirit behind this, and that's important, like to know what was the mission for this project, the design mission for it. But I'm also just literally curious about what, like Terry specifically. Terry, you're doing so much labor. I want to give you a moment to talk about what you're doing. This room is specifically super interested in what you do. Really.
So just like Maya, I started off as a sounding board for Dayla, and we have worked together, I want to say almost 8 years at the JACCC and at East West Players. My 9-to-5 job was a box office coordinator. My super fun job was stage managing audio lighting technician for live concerts at Grand Performances, at the Ford Theater, Lummis Day Festival in Highland Park, and managing, local bands, taking them on tour. So my role with Trek Table is the artist coordinator. I guess it would be like line producer, just getting all of the information from Allison's brain dumps and, trying to schedule our hosts, guest hosts, special guests in the chat rooms, and I'm doing my best to welcome all of our hosts and guests to the Trek table with everything that they need. Sometimes, of course, I get a little backed up, emails go out late, I forget to CC somebody, but, it happens. We're in Mercury in retrograde right now. But yes, I just love just being back in some kind of performance space. And as a stage manager, just putting out the best product for our audience and making our performers happy and feel like they've done, they've put on a great performance, and just making them feel successful, that they don't have to worry about anything. They just need to show up and everything will run smoothly. And that's where Brandon comes in. He's our production manager. He is a whiz with, we use OBS, we use Zoom. We've been playing with Clean Feed and Zencaster just to get these performances out and clean, so that our artists, who are our hosts, can just relax and just do their thing. And I am a Trek newbie. So watching season 1, episode 1 was great. I'm like, I should have started there instead of jumping in season 3 when I came onto the project. But yeah, so that's what I do. I send a lot of emails, make a lot of Excel spreadsheets. It's fun.
And so there's several different organizations that are helping to hold and promote this project. So there's De La Productions, there's Outpost 13, and then there's like the specific team that's working on this project itself. It feels like we've got several different pools. In terms of how we produce it, I know that we meet once a week to talk about what we watched, and we dump up all of our notes into a shared Excel document. And that's how the script starts to form itself. One of the things that I loved, and I don't know if Brandon introduced this or somebody who on the team introduced this practice, but just the literal highlighting. Was this you, Arthur? The highlighting of the lines as we say them. Oh, that was you, Marie? Marie for the win. I keep telling, you don't even know, I have been spreading that practice Johnny Appleseed style all over the country, telling everyone, put your script in an Excel spreadsheet, and then while the show's going, just highlight the colored line, and then everybody is in the same place in the sheet. I love it.
Yeah, it's really great. Google Docs is great for being able to follow the same document across the country and being able to be in the same, to like kind of see where everyone is. I went ahead and just entered a bunch of notes in the notes for this meeting about how big the team is, what my knowledge of the weekly schedule is, and what programs that I know that we're using. I'll also add some of the programs that Arthur uses to design the work. But I think that also, like, with the visual, with the look of the show, OBS has been like Arthur and Brandon working together on designing the frames and using Zoom and OBS to push out what the feed is has been really central to how the show looks. We also, yeah, I think just kind of what Arthur did was also he did a ton of research on watching other live cast shows and what they look like and how people kind of situate and design their frames so that it's not just faces and black space on Zoom. And so that has been really integral to how the show looks and feels. We've also gamified a ton of our segments, I'll say, because we love using a timer, because otherwise we will just keep talking. And, you know, and that kind of, I'll take credit. And that kind of started with me wanting to come up with a segment, or I came up with a segment called Marie Has Questions, because I was new to Discovery, and was like, I'm gonna have questions about a ton of stuff. So let's just try and get through as many questions as possible in 2 minutes. And then that's our time. And so, and then that kind of practice does continue through a couple of segments that are timed, because we can go on forever. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just kind of, and what's interesting about our weekly schedule is that people have different off days because things do need, because it is a weekly show. So we're always working on the show. I would say that we've been rehearsing since October, and finally opened the show a couple weeks ago. We went live on January 31st with our first live audience on Twitch. So we've only done 2 live shows, but we have like a whole feed of like 15 shows recorded that we practice. So we just practiced by doing the show for a couple months. And I agree with Claudia that the liveness part of the show, where we integrate the audience, is like, I think really where the show came alive for us. We had a great show yesterday. I'll say that. And so my Monday is kind of a general off day, but is it really an off day when that's when we're watching the episode that we're working on for the next week? Tuesdays are production meetings. Multiple production meetings with the different team members, especially those who are not on camera. Wednesday is when our show notes are due as co-hosts, like things that we want to talk about, scenes and segments that we definitely want to do for the next for the show that week. We have a host huddle on Thursdays. Fridays is when the script is locked, and we do a kind of dry tech with our production coordinator, our producers, our designer, and Terry, just to make sure that we have all the pieces that we need. So then that gives us a day to make sure that all the pieces are in place for Sunday's show. Yeah. I'm kind of running through things quickly, but
oh, yeah. I can jump in some other things too. So yeah, we basically build our show logistically as like a Tuesday through Sunday kind of project. So we try to eliminate as much impact on the host as possible. We found in discovering that in order to have that spontaneity, we do need to allow everyone to have those amazing conversations in the show. But at the same time, we are trying to find ways to structure to give room for everybody to like have those moments. And I'd love to also hear from Claudia and Maya too on ways that this impacts. But for the production side, we are trying to find those practices that really lift everybody up and give everybody a chance to like have that cool moment to say and have those. And also we want to surface ways to create more conversation and that synergy. So a lot of what we're doing is finding ways to create little pods of discussion and different ways to like look at the show and then give everyone like new entryways. Let's see what else. So yeah, we watching the show. Tuesdays we also do a marketing meeting. We've brought on an ops manager. So we have someone now also helping us synergize a way that we all work very differently as creatives and kind of build logistics. So on my side too, a lot of it's like the design work and trying to figure out how to execute and give priority to that design work, because I both am in a role of like production, but then also eventually we see that we're going to have to hire a freelancer or somebody else too to come in and substitute on some of the work. But in order to do that, we have to be able to offload that work in a structured way so we can account for that person's time, the financial compensation, all those kind of things. And I have a practice in that. I've been a creative director for clothing brands before. So we're trying to find that transitional way, but at the same time, right now we're building that. So even for the design, I'm a crazy big nerd. But for me, the show had to have a feminist grounding. Like we didn't want it to look like nerd boy show. We wanted to look for like, we want to show that everybody feels invited, and there is that a good, interesting balance of like how much Trek is in there, so that we are accommodating. Like we've come up with terms now too, where there's Trek hype, there's Trek light. We have all these different ways to try to clarify like how people come to the Trek space, and we want to acknowledge them in different ways, both visually and audio, to like have everybody feel like they have a space here and to discuss, because Trek is really just about humanity. It's science fiction has always been a interesting way for us to talk about like what's going on in human relationships. So yeah.
Well, I want to lift up some of the observations folks have been making. When we were sharing the very sloppy stuff from Twitch, you could see that there's an audience engagement factor that's going on. And then there's a post-show show. And I think that's part of what you're doing. So this is a live talk show, but it's also a podcast. So it's published later as a podcast, but you can experience it as a live audiencing event. And then you invite folks to have a post-show special chat afterwards. Is that only for special people? Who gets to? I felt very special being in it.
Yeah, it's for subscribers and our Patreon donors. So it's, since we just launched, it's right now a small group. So and special invites of people who have been, who have been helping out, like as with like any kind of brainstorms or with other kinds of like just kind of additional help that DELA has turned to them for, like helping give notes on specific shows. So right now it's a Zoom after chat after our show, so that and the hosts, we are asked to be there for 5 to 10 minutes, and we can stay for longer. And so that's just kind of, it's a casual kind of social thing that that we get to have with our audience, and that is an opportunity for our audience to hang out.
I would also invite you, if Terry wants to speak on this part, because a lot of it is like the coordination between people coming into this show, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens that, like, if Terry wants to talk, I know we have a host for that part too, and how it's like coordinating all that.
Yeah, so we do have a core group that we invite every week into the special after chat. And, like Marie said and Maya said, that, it's people who have been supporting us, through our recordings, through our rehearsals, acting as sounding boards. And so, yeah, there is a lot of coordination. Our host will say, hey, send an invite to my friend. Here's our email address. So there's a lot of last minute kind of things going on with the after chat. But I think that's, where the host can relax and just really go deeper into things that they touched on in the show that the fans want more of.
Yeah, and also I would like to add, DELA brought in Minda as an executive producer. And so, each time she brings someone in, it alleviates like her or the rest of us having to be on for like 2 hours straight. So, so Minda sort of hosts that after chat, but also she's someone who has been helping the meetings be shorter to, just helping us kind of like have, helping kind of, because we could go on and on forever. A lot of us have so many ideas and so many different things. So it's been we have lots of different meetings, but they are a little bit more compressed now or shorter. Some of them are half an hour, some of them are an hour. You know, there are times when they go longer, but I think it has been really great that she's been pulling on her networks and her years and years of collaboration with people. I think she has that gift, and all of us have these kind of networks that we're pulling in that, you know, that we're hoping we will get paid at some point. Right now we are getting like small kind of stipends, but there are a lot of volunteers, and I think they're working on like a business model of partially, I think, through Patreon, but also maybe sponsorships. I mean, and I think that's been great as like kind of someone who myself, I have lots of ideas. I pay attention to, I'm now jumping on the team that's going to work on social media, because I should be getting paid for all the time that I'm on social media. So I'm excited about, you know, just that in life, because I think about those kinds of things a lot. And I have now a place to kind of channel figuring out that work and collaborating, you know, being able to bounce off of someone else. So I think that it's been really kind of exciting about that. And then there was also a question about what made us choose to go with the visual platform and not straight up audio like most podcasts. That's a great question, because I was super panicked from the beginning. I was like, why are we doing it live? Why do we have to do this Twitch thing? Because I think, you know, I know there's a background of why Twitch is the way it is, but mostly it has been used by gamers to interact. And as well as I used it for the first time to watch drag shows, you know, so that was one of the ways that drag performers in the pandemic were still able to perform and get tips and things like that. So you know, I was just super panicked about that, because when I had dreamed about doing a podcast, I was like, great, I won't have to brush my hair, I will be able to you know, make something, you know, do a creative project. I'll be able to edit out any of the air and pauses and all those things, which I think we still will do for some of the audio archive. We're working on that. And the great thing about also having teamed up with a theater company that's also starting up in this time period, which is, so Outpost 13 is their digital platform, but it's outside in theater. You know, they're also on a scramble to figure out how they're going to be able to put out work. And the cool thing I think is they we might be still doing this after after these times, right? So right now it felt like a stopgap, but this is also kind of bringing in an element of accessibility, right? There's the element of people who may not be able to get online and still would absolutely love to be in live space, but I have just enjoyed being able to watch things online. You know, it's not perfect, but trying to make that more dynamic and interactive has been really fun about working and collaborating together. You know, because I'm an 100 ideas person, but actually being able to enact some of those ideas and make them happen is super glorious. So that's I think it was also because there's a channel that's now called Geekish, or Pan Geekery it was called, and Geekish, they had already done some of this kind of work and were launching a bunch of different kind of nerd type shows, you know, not only Star Trek, but Star Wars, and, you know, so, and I think they have one where they cook and talk about shows, you know, so, but that's what I think we all love about Dela is like, it's like there's an idea and then she's like, oh no, I'm going to take it to this next level, right? So we're not just going to chat on a podcast or maybe have an outline. No, we're going to have a script. We definitely have moments to be able to improvise and banter, but you know, there's a visual aspect. She wants to create a team. trying to develop a business model. It's just, I mean, it's like there's been so many heartbreaks and so much challenge during this time. But I think as someone who's her partner, I've just been the person who's like, try it, do it. Like to me, I thought this was going to be her side thing, and she does have all these other things that she does, and we all have all these other things that we do. But it's taken over a little bit of our lives, and I think but I've just been able to say, like, look, you have so much cultural capital. This is the time to really do that. And also her practice of amplifying women, amplifying queer folks, amplifying people of color. I think that is always at the forefront, and something that a lot of people are trying to do, or speak about doing, but in the practice, seems challenging. But we have these skills and these gifts, and sometimes we're not, I mean, we're here. We have the talent, right? We have the talent pool, I guess. I want to say so.
Can I also add that, that deciding to go with a visual presentation platform over just like an audio platform is, I think that was where the opportunity came from to make this show a reality. So Dela was approached by one or two, the first person who approached her were the Pangeekery / Geekish Twitch channel producers, because they were looking for a Star Trek show and heard that Allison had been, just kind of brainstorming this idea about doing a show about Star Trek. And then so, that conversation happened, and Allison was already working on helping build the foundations for Outside In Theater with some colleagues. And two of the producers with Outside In are the folks who run Outpost 13. So those two ideas kind of came into place a couple weeks apart, and that's when we were like, okay, this has to happen. and so from there was how we started building exactly synergy, and that's exactly how and when we started building the show into what it is, because the opportunity came from some Twitch folks.
I would also say too, on the back end as well, like Brandon, who's our audio coordinator, and just overall, he's also a great stage manager. I've had so much experience with him. A lot of it too is bringing all these things. They just kind of like magically Venn diagram together at a certain time where we were trying to get the show where we could to launch with any place. And then I would also say it's a synergy for Dela, where she was like, this is what these guys are doing, this is what those guys are doing. And all these people were pulling her, saying like, you could do this with us, you could do that with us. And we were like, Dela, you could do this all by yourself and we'll help you. So it's kind of like getting those outside imposed deadlines was helpful for all, like to wrangle all the kittens together. And then on the back end, Brandon and I were trying to work out Twitch. We were trying to figure out how to bring this to a visual platform. And we were using substitute frames that we found from online resources. There's so many resources to find the frames and stuff for Twitch. And then I was trying to help build this visual brand for this. And then it's just the synergy. Like 1 week, we just got enough things together. So we were like practicing with little frames. I found ones that Brandon was able to like juxtapose and then like type in little things. And we had this like hodgepodge, like, masking tape version or gaffer's tape version, I would say, for theater. And then we just kind of pulled it all together 1 week, and Dela was like, we're going to fly. And then we just kept adding stuff too. So it is that interesting part where it's like, there's so many components and outside things that gave us these restrictions or these pushes. And then internally, Dela was able to help bring together all these different elements. And then we were like, boom. And then that's how it evolved into how we're doing now. And it keeps evolving.
And I have to say, you all were recording and practicing for like 13 weeks before even doing a live show, doing the actual thing, right?
Yes,
So
Maya, let me shout that out a little bit, and then I'm going to maybe do a couple of closing comments to help close us out and bring our session to a full close. Because yes, one of the things I observed with this particular project is that it's pulling from theater producing techniques, as well as podcasting producing techniques, as well as live stream producing techniques. They're actually, there are three really different ways of producing work, and this is a very blended model. So there was the entire rehearsal, like the act of fully doing these sessions with an audience, with people there interacting with us, but knowing that this was developmental, that it wasn't actually being live streamed on Twitch, and that this was like a safer place to work out the rhythms and how it worked, but in a live way. It felt like previews. Shout out to the fact that as a team, y'all have been experimenting with different ways to produce this. So I laughed real hard because my participation level on Trek Table is I'm talent, so I'm not totally involved in the amazing conversations around, we're going to figure out how to get this live streamed on these different platforms at these specific times. So when we did the Zencaster experiment, I was like, okay, Claudia, strap in, because I recall doing that beautiful experiment with y'all. And we had a similar experience. We actually did end up going to the Zoom model of using separate tracks, but what did we learn with that? If you pause yourself when you're doing multi-track Zoom recordings, it stops the recording and makes a new one every time you mute yourself. Which means if you're doing a multi-voiced project, it immediately goes out of sync the second you have multiple people doing it. Now, the beautiful thing about this project was there were multiple redundancies. So there was the Twitch feed. There was a separate feed that Brandon was recording just like as a personal archive. So there were 3 different places this existed. So the Zoom archive was a fail, because it just, you couldn't use it. But luckily there were 2 other pulls from that. So I just want to do a shout out for redundancy. A shout out for the largeness of the team and the fact that the team continues to expand. And that is what is helping to keep the labor reasonable, but also an acknowledgement that producing simultaneously in multiple spaces takes more energy than only producing in one space. So the thing that we are doing is harder than the thing we were doing previously when we were trying to do something in just a building, a room. Thank you so much for writing out just the fullness of the team and the scheduling. This information is so useful. I know that for some of our community, they're just starting out and they don't even have in their head what would a schedule even look like. So just, it's very generous. That was a very generous thing you did. We thank you for that thought knowledge. Thank you so much. And also just thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. We meet every week. We're going to be gathering again next week, 1 p.m. so that we can be accessible for folks. We'll be meeting in the afternoon next week. And then we're fully taking the day off. So on the 15th, we'll be back here at 1 p.m. On the 22nd, day off. We're going to go live our lives, live our best lives, because we are trying to make this a sustainable practice. Oh, y'all, I'm loving all the links. I'm loving all the links. We're going to make sure all these links end up in the notes and also end up in all the other spaces. Any closing remarks before we end our recording for this week? All right, well then just live long and prosper, my friends. Thank you so much for Trek Table joining us as guests. And hit stop on the recording.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. I might come to future ones just for my own practice.